The morning sun rose over Haven's Rest like it had for the past 12 years. Golden light spread across endless fields of wheat and corn that stretched to the horizon. Children ran between the crop rows, their laughter echoing across the peaceful colony world. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped out of her small research station and breathed in the clean air. She had come here 5 years ago to study the local plant life. What she found was something better than any discovery she found home. The 50,000 people who lived on Haven's Rest had built something beautiful. Farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, and families had created a simple life far from the noise and politics of Earth. Elena walked toward the town center, where the weekly market was setting. Up, Mrs. Chen was arranging fresh vegetables from her garden. Old Pete was tuning his guitar for the evening music. Sarah Martinez was hanging colorful drawings made by her kindergarten class. Everyone knew everyone here. They were a family. Dr. Rodriguez called out little Tommy Walsh. He ran up to her with dirt on his knees and excitement in his eyes. "Did you see the shooting stars last night?" "There were so many." Elena smiled and ruffled his hair. "Those weren't shooting stars, Tommy. Those were ships passing through space. Very far away." What Elena didn't know was that some of those ships were now much closer than anyone realized. High above Haven's Rest, Admiral Thexara of the Hegemony Enforcement Fleet stood on the bridge of his massive warship. The alien commander was tall and thin with gray skin and cold yellow eyes. He looked down at the peaceful human world with disgust. "Such a pathetic species," he said to his second-in-command. "Look at them, farming and playing like children. They spread across space without asking permission. They take worlds that belong to the Galactic Hegemony." The second officer nodded. "Should we give them a chance to surrender, Admiral?" Thexara's thin lips curved into a cruel smile. "No. The Hegemony Council wants to send a message to all unauthorized colonies. Humans think they can take any world they want. Today we show them the price of defying galactic law." He turned to the communications officer. "Begin recording. I want this broadcast across all local systems. Let every species see what happens to those who ignore hegemony authority." Down on Haven's Rest, Elena was helping set up tables for the evening feast when the sky began to change. Dark shapes appeared high above, blocking out the sun. The ships were enormous, larger than anything the colonists had ever seen. "What are those?" asked Mrs. Chen, shading her eyes to look up. Elena felt ice in her stomach. She had worked on Earth's defense stations before coming here. She knew military ships when she saw them. Everyone needs to get inside, now. But it was already too late. Beams of deadly energy lanced down from the alien ships. The first strikes hit the communications tower and the small spaceport. Explosions lit up the afternoon sky. People screamed and ran in all directions. Elena grabbed Tommy Walsh's hand and ran toward her research station. She had emergency equipment there, including a quantum beacon that could send messages across space faster than light. If she could reach it, she might be able to warn Earth. More energy beams rained down. The school building exploded in a ball of fire. The hospital collapsed as walls melted under alien weapons. Elena saw Mrs. Chen fall as debris crashed around her. She saw old Pete trying to shield a group of children with his own body. "Why are they doing this?" Tommy cried as they ran. Elena didn't have an answer. This wasn't a military target. This was just a farming world with families and children. But the aliens were destroying everything systematically, like they wanted to make sure nothing survived. They reached Elena's station just as another energy beam hit nearby. The building shook and sparks flew from damaged equipment. Elena's hands moved quickly over the quantum beacon controls. The machine hummed to life. "Come on," she whispered. "Work. Please work." Through the small window, she could see alien ships landing in the fields. Soldiers in dark armor poured out, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. This wasn't just orbital bombardment anymore. They were making sure every human died. The quantum beacon finally connected to Earth's emergency network. Elena began recording her message, knowing it might be the last thing she ever did. "This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez on Haven's Rest Colony. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. They're killing everyone, civilians, children, everyone. The ships are massive, technology we've never seen before." She uploaded the tactical data her sensors had gathered. 50,000 people live here. They're murdering all of us." An explosion nearby knocked her to the floor. When she looked up, alien soldiers were at the door. Their weapons were already charging. "Tell Earth," she gasped into the beacon. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them we died as humans, and we died free." The energy blast turned everything white. Admiral Thexera watched the final moments of Haven's Rest from his command ship. Fires burned across the continent. No human signals remained active. His soldiers reported complete success, 0 survivors. "Excellent work," he told his crew. "Make sure the recording is clear. I want every species to see this. Humans are not special. They bleed and die like any other primitive species." The broadcast went out across dozens of star systems. The message was simple. This is what happens to unauthorized colonies. This is what happens when you defy the galactic hegemony. But there was something Admiral Thexera didn't know. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's quantum beacon had worked. Her final message, along with complete sensor data and horrifying video footage, was already racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. The signal arrived at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station 3 days later. The technician who received it was a young man named David Park. He had been expecting routine colony reports. Instead, he watched footage that would change everything. David saw the peaceful morning on Haven's Rest. He saw families working in their fields. He saw children playing and laughing. Then he watched it all burn. He watched alien soldiers hunt down civilians who tried to hide. He watched them kill children who couldn't run fast enough. The worst part was Admiral Thexera's final message, broadcast on all frequencies. "Let this be a lesson to all unauthorized settlements. The galactic hegemony will not tolerate illegal expansion. Humans are just another primitive species and they will learn their place." David's hand shook as he forwarded the message to Earth's government. Within an hour, every leader on Earth had seen the footage. Within 6 hours, President Chen Wei was standing in the emergency session of the World Council. 50,000 people, the president said quietly. 12,000 of them were children. The room was silent. Everyone had watched the same horrible footage. They had all seen what the aliens did to innocent families. "What are our options?" asked the Secretary of Defense. President Chen Wei looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. Each one showed the same mix of grief and rage that he felt in his own heart. "We have only one option," he said. "We show them what happens when you murder human children." The message to Haven's Rest had taken 3 days to reach Earth. Earth's response would take much longer to prepare. But when it came, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not the primitive species Admiral Thexera thought they were. The burning of Haven's Rest was over. But the fire it lit in human hearts was just beginning to spread. Ambassador Zekthul of the Galactic Hegemony paced nervously in his ornate office. 6 months had passed since the destruction of Haven's Rest, and something was very wrong. Earth had gone completely silent. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat had expected many things after Admiral Thexera's attack. Angry messages from Earth's government, desperate pleas for mercy, maybe even a small military response that the hegemony could easily crush. What he got instead was nothing at all. Still no response from the human homeworld? He asked his aide, a nervous creature with too many eyes. "Nothing, Ambassador. We've sent diplomatic messages, trade requests, even threats. The Sol system appears to be completely dark. No communications in or out for 6 months. Zekthul stopped pacing. This wasn't normal. When the hegemony destroyed unauthorized colonies, the parent species always responded somehow. They begged, they threatened, they tried to negotiate. They didn't just disappear. What about our spy networks? Surely we have some information about what's happening on Earth." The aide shuffled through data tablets with trembling hands. "That's what worries me, sir. All our intelligence sources in human space have gone dark. The last reports we received were strange. Strange how? Massive industrial activity across all human worlds. Every shipyard from Earth to the outer colonies running at maximum capacity. Civilian populations being moved underground. Energy signatures that our analysts can't identify." Ambassador Zekthul felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He knew the signs of a species preparing for war. But this seemed like something else entirely. Far from the hegemony's capital, deep beneath the Himalayan mountains on Earth, President Chen Wei stood in a vast underground chamber that hadn't existed 7 months ago. The strategic command bunker stretched for miles in every direction, its walls lined with screens showing industrial output from across human space. "Status report," the president said quietly. Admiral Sarah Hawthorne, Earth's finest military strategist, stepped forward. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. "All shipyards are at 150% capacity. We've converted every civilian industry to military production. Mining operations in the asteroid belt are pulling out more metal than ever before in human history. And the fleet? Currently at 387,000 dreadnoughts completed. The final 13,000 should be ready within 2 weeks. President Chen Wei nodded slowly. Around them, thousands of technicians worked at control stations coordinating the largest military buildup in human history. Every person in the bunker had watched the footage from Haven's Rest. Every person knew what they were working toward. Show me the latest design specs, the president said. Admiral Hawthorne activated a holographic display. The ship that appeared was massive, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull gleamed with advanced armor plating. Weapon systems covered every surface. Most importantly, it carried technology that humanity had kept secret for decades. Each dreadnought is 2.3 kilometers long, Admiral Hawthorne explained. They're powered by quantum fusion reactors that generate more energy than some stars. The main weapons can crack a planet's crust from orbit. The shields can absorb direct hits from antimatter warheads. And they don't know we have this technology? No, sir. We've been very careful. For 50 years, we've let other species think our ships were primitive. We use simple designs for trade and exploration. Meanwhile, our real military research stayed hidden. President Chen Wei studied the hologram. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each ship represented billions of work hours and unlimited resources. More importantly, each ship represented Earth's answer to Haven's Rest. Crew training? Complete. Every ship will be crewed by volunteers. We had more people apply than we could use. Turns out, when you show humans footage of children being murdered, they get motivated. In another part of the bunker, Dr. James Liu was putting the finishing touches on humanity's secret weapon. Not the ships themselves, but the technology that made them possible. Quantum displacement drives are ready, he reported to his team. Temporal shield generators are online. Probability manipulation systems are functioning within acceptable parameters. His assistant, Dr. Sarah Kim, looked up from her workstation. Are we really going to reveal all of this? We've kept these technologies secret for so long. Dr. Liu thought about little Tommy Walsh from Haven's Rest. The boy who had asked about shooting stars and would never ask another question about anything. Yes, we're going to show them everything. Let the galaxy see what humans can really do when we stop holding back. Back in hegemony space, Admiral Thexara was growing increasingly worried. His victory at Haven's Rest should have made him a hero. Instead, he found himself assigned to patrol the border between hegemony and human space, watching for Earth's response. Admiral, called his communications officer, we're detecting something strange from the direction of Sol system. What kind of strange? Energy readings, sir. Massive ones. It's like someone lit up a dozen stars in that system. Admiral Thexara moved to the sensor station. The readings were impossible. No known technology could generate that much power. Are you certain these readings are accurate? Yes, sir. And Admiral, they're getting stronger. Meanwhile, on the hegemony homeworld, the Council of Species was meeting in emergency session. Representatives from 100 different alien races filled the Great Chamber, all of them asking the same question. Where were the humans? 6 months of silence is unprecedented, declared Councillor Vextar, a mantis-like creature from the Outer Rim. When we destroyed the Keltharian colonies, they responded within days. The humans are probably building a small revenge fleet, said Councillor Mordoon, whose species resembled walking trees. Something to save face. We'll crush it easily and be done with this matter. But Councillor Zethkar, oldest and wisest of the assembly, shook his massive head. His species had lived for thousands of years and remembered when the humans first appeared in space. You're all making a mistake, he said in his deep, rumbling voice. You think humans are like other species. They're not. When humans go silent, it means they're planning something terrible. Ridiculous, scoffed Councillor Morden. They're a young species. Primitive. They've been in space for less than 200 years. Councillor Zethkar's ancient eyes fixed on the speaker. In those 200 years, they've colonized more worlds than most species manage in 2000. They've developed faster-than-light travel, terraforming technology and industrial capacity that matches civilizations 10 times older. And you think they're primitive? The chamber fell silent. Many councillors had never thought about humanity's rapid expansion in those terms. What are you suggesting? Asked Councillor Vextar. I'm suggesting that maybe we should have studied humans more carefully before we decided to murder their children. Back on Earth, President Chenwei received the final report from Admiral Hawthorne. Every dreadnought was complete. Every crew was trained. Every system was ready. 400,000 ships, he said quietly. One for every 8 people who died on Haven's Rest. The fleet is ready to depart on your order. Sir. President Chenwei thought about Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had died trying to warn Earth. He thought about Tommy Walsh, who would never see another sunrise. He thought about Mrs. Chen and old Pete and Sarah Martinez and all the others who had just wanted to live in peace. Send a message to Admiral Thexara, he said finally. Tell him we received his broadcast from Haven's Rest. Tell him we found it very educational. Just that, sir? Just that. Let him wonder what we learned. As the message headed toward hegemony space, 400,000 dreadnoughts began moving toward the edge of the Sol system. The largest fleet in galactic history was about to emerge from the shadows, and with it the galaxy would learn what humans really were. The silence from Sol was about to end. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. The first detection came from a hegemony listening post on the edge of human space. Sensor operator Clicks was finishing his shift when every alarm in the station began screaming at once. "What's happening?" shouted his supervisor, rushing to the control station. Clicks stared at his screens in disbelief. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures emerging from Sol system. Multiple contacts, very large, moving at incredible speed." "How many contacts?" Clicks's hands trembled as he worked the controls. The number kept climbing. "Sir, I'm reading." "This can't be right. Give me a number." "Over 400,000 ships, sir, and they're all heading directly toward us." The supervisor grabbed the emergency communication system. Within minutes, the report was racing toward Hegemony Central Command. Within an hour, every major government in the galaxy knew that humanity's silence had ended. Admiral Thexara received the news while inspecting his border patrol fleet. He read the report 3 times before he believed it. 400,000 ships, he said to his aide. That's impossible. Humans don't have that kind of industrial capacity. The reports are confirmed from multiple sources, Admiral. Long-range scans show a fleet formation so large it takes hours to count all the ships. Admiral Thexara felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. What kind of ships are they? Unknown design, sir. Much larger than anything we've seen from humans before. Each vessel appears to be over 2 kilometers long. The Admiral stared out at the stars, remembering his easy victory at Haven's Rest. 50,000 humans had died without putting up any real fight. Their ships had been small and weak. How could they possibly have built such a massive fleet in just 6 months? Get me a direct line to Hegemony Central Command, he ordered. We need reinforcements. All of them. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, the flagship of humanity's revenge fleet. Around her, 3999 other dreadnoughts moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, bristling with weapons that could turn planets to dust. Admiral, reported her communications officer, we're receiving panic signals from across hegemony space. They know we're coming. Good. How long until we reach the nexus point? 18 hours at current speed. Admiral Hawthorne nodded. The nexus point was a strategic system that controlled access to both human and hegemony space. It would be the perfect place for the galaxy's largest battle. It would also be the perfect place to send a message that no one could ignore. Open a channel to Admiral Thexara, she ordered. Her crew worked quickly to establish the connection. When Admiral Thexara's face appeared on the screen, Admiral Hawthorne could see the fear in his alien eyes. Admiral Thexara, she said calmly, I believe you have something that belongs to us. I don't understand, the alien replied, trying to sound confident. We have nothing of yours. You have the blood of 50,000 humans on your hands. 12,000 of them were children. You broadcast their deaths across the galaxy like entertainment. Admiral Thexara's expression hardened. Haven's Rest was an illegal settlement. We enforced galactic law. No, said Admiral Hawthorne quietly. You committed genocide, and now we're coming to collect payment for what you did. You cannot threaten the hegemony with a single fleet no matter how large. Admiral Hawthorne smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, you killed 50,000 of our people, so we built 400,000 dreadnoughts. 1 ship for every 8 people you murdered. We did the math. The connection ended, leaving Admiral Thexara staring at a blank screen. Around him, His bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate the largest military response in hegemony history. Status report on our reinforcements, he demanded. The Third Fleet is moving to support us, his aide reported. Also the 7th, 12th, and 15th Fleets. Total force will be approximately 2.3 million ships. Admiral Thexara felt some of his confidence return. 2.3 million ships against 400,000. The humans might have caught them by surprise, but numbers were numbers. No force in the galaxy could stand against such overwhelming odds. But deep in space, Admiral Hawthorne was reviewing intelligence reports that told a very different story. Humanity's spies had been busy during the 6 months of silence. Analysis of hegemony fleet composition, she said to her tactical officer. Their ships are primarily focused on overwhelming weaker opponents through numbers, came the reply. Most vessels are 200, 300 years old. Weapon systems are outdated. Armor plating is insufficient by our standards. Shield technology is primitive. And our dreadnoughts? Each one could engage 50 hegemony ships simultaneously and maintain superiority. Our quantum fusion reactors generate 10 times more power than their largest vessels. Our weapons can penetrate their strongest shields like paper. Admiral Hawthorne studied the tactical projections. It wouldn't even be a fair fight. But fair wasn't the point. Justice was the point. Across the galaxy, news of the approaching human fleet spread like wildfire. On the hegemony homeworld, the Council of Species met an emergency session. This is madness, declared Councillor Morden. Humans cannot possibly challenge the combined might of the hegemony. Can't they? Asked Councillor Zethkar. How do you think they built 400,000 ships in 6 months? How do you think they've been colonizing worlds faster than any species in galactic history? You're suggesting they've been hiding their true capabilities? I'm not suggesting it. I'm stating it as fact. We never paid attention to human industrial capacity because we dismissed them as primitive. Now we're about to learn how wrong we were. In the Great Chamber, 100 different species argued about how to respond to the human threat. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate attack. A few suggested running away entirely. But on the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Hawthorne wasn't interested in any of those options. She was looking at a memorial wall that filled one entire side of her command center. 50,000 names were etched into the metal, one for each person who died on Haven's Rest. Tommy Walsh, age 7, she read aloud. Sarah Martinez, age 34. Elena Rodriguez, age 41. She paused at each name, remembering faces from the footage that had started this war. Admiral, her communications officer called out.
The hegemony fleet is taking position at the nexus point. They're requesting terms for surrender.
Surrender? Admiral Hawthorne laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell them that humans don't accept surrender from child killers. Tell them they should have thought about terms before they decided to murder families. As the human fleet approached the nexus point, every ship in both fleets prepared for battle. The hegemony forces arranged themselves in traditional formation, hoping their numbers would intimidate the smaller human fleet. They were about to learn that humans had spent 50 years developing weapons and tactics that made traditional warfare obsolete. All ships, Admiral Hawthorne broadcast to her fleet, remember Haven's Rest, remember why we're here. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you mistake human mercy for weakness. 400,000 dreadnoughts acknowledged her message and prepared to enter combat. Each crew member knew they were about to make history. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire worlds, but more importantly, each human in the fleet carried something that no alien could understand: the absolute certainty that they were fighting for justice. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and the humans had already won it in their hearts. The Nexus Point had never seen anything like this. 2 massive fleets faced each other across the darkness of space. On one side, 2.3 million ships of the galactic hegemony spread out in traditional battle formation. On the other side, 400,000 human dreadnoughts arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns that looked almost beautiful. Admiral Thexara stood on his flagship's bridge, studying the human fleet through long-range sensors. Even though his forces outnumbered the humans nearly 6-1, something felt wrong. The human ships were too calm, too organized. They moved with the precision of a species that had never lost a battle. All ships report ready for combat, his tactical officer announced. Begin the attack, Admiral Thexara ordered. Show these humans the price of defying the hegemony. The first wave of hegemony ships rushed forward, weapons charging. Energy beams and missile salvos filled the space between the fleets. It was a sight that would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. But Admiral Sarah Hawthorne just smiled coldly as she watched the incoming attack on her screens. All ships, she broadcast calmly, activate defensive systems and prepare to show them what real weapons look like. What happened next changed everything everyone thought they knew about space warfare. The human dreadnoughts lit up with energy, shields that absorbed the hegemony weapons like they were flashlights. Missile strikes that should have destroyed ships harmlessly exploded against barriers that seemed impossible. The entire first wave attack accomplished nothing except to announce the beginning of the battle. Impossible, breathed Admiral Thexera. Our weapons should have crippled at least a dozen ships. Sir, his sensor operator called out, the human vessels are charging their own weapons. Energy readings are... Sir, they're off the scale. Admiral Hawthorne stood at her command station watching the tactical display. Each human ship was represented by a blue dot. Each hegemony ship was red. There were many more red dots, but that didn't matter anymore. All ships, she announced, fire. 100,000 dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. The beams that lanced out from the human fleet were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They weren't simple energy weapons. They were focused streams of quantum fire that could burn through anything. Each beam found its target with impossible accuracy. Hegemony ships didn't just explode, they simply ceased to exist, transformed into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. In the first 30 seconds, 10,000 hegemony vessels were destroyed. Evasive maneuvers. Admiral Thexera screamed into his communication system. All ships evasive maneuvers. But there was nowhere to run. The human weapons moved at the speed of light and adjusted their targeting faster than any ship could dodge. Worse, the humans were fighting with cold precision that was more terrifying than any battle rage. On the UES Retribution, Admiral Hawthorne watched the destruction with no emotion on her face. Each exploding hegemony ship represented justice for Haven's Rest. Each death paid back the murder of innocent humans. Status report, she said, calmly. Enemy fleet strength down to 2.1 million ships, her tactical officer reported. Our losses 0. Continue firing. All targets are valid. The battle became a methodical slaughter. Human dreadnoughts moved through the hegemony fleet like death itself, their weapons reaching out to destroy everything they touched. The aliens tried every tactic they knew, ramming attacks, coordinated strikes, even suicide runs. Nothing worked. Worse for the hegemony forces, they began to realize that the humans weren't just technologically superior. They were psychologically different. Where other species might show mercy or accept surrender, the human fleet systematically destroyed every ship it encountered. Admiral Thexera's communications officer called out, "We're receiving surrender requests from over 300 ships." "Should I?" "No." Admiral Hawthorne's voice cut across all frequencies. "Humans don't accept surrender from child killers. You wanted to show the galaxy what happens to unauthorized colonies. Today we show you what happens to those who murder children." Admiral Thexera felt true terror for the first time in his long military career. This wasn't a battle, it was an execution, and every human ship was an executioner carrying out a death sentence. "All ships," he broadcast desperately, "retreat to secondary positions. We need to regroup." But the human dreadnoughts followed relentlessly. Their speed was impossible, their coordination perfect. It was like fighting a single organism with 400,000 claws, each one deadly beyond imagining. As the hours passed, the hegemony fleet was systematically destroyed. Ships that had served proudly for centuries were reduced to wreckage in minutes. Crews that had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves helpless against human technology that seemed like magic. "Sir," Admiral Thexera's aide said quietly, "we've lost over half our fleet. Maybe we should consider..." "Consider what?" the Admiral snapped. "Surrender? You heard what they said. They're not taking prisoners." On the UES Retribution, Dr. James Liu was monitoring the battle from the science station. As the creator of many of the weapons being used, he felt a mix of pride and sadness watching them work. "Admiral," he reported to Admiral Hawthorne, "our quantum displacement cannons are performing beyond expectations. The temporal shield generators are holding perfectly. The probability manipulation systems are giving us targeting accuracy of 99.97%. How long can we maintain this rate of fire? Indefinitely. Our quantum fusion reactors are barely working at 10% capacity. Admiral Hawthorne nodded. They could have wiped out the entire hegemony fleet in the first hour if they had wanted to. But this needed to be a lesson, not just a victory. Every species in the galaxy was watching this battle. They needed to see that humans were not the primitive species they had believed. Sir, Admiral Thexara's sensor operator suddenly called out. The human flagship is moving directly toward us. Admiral Thexara looked at his tactical display. The massive human dreadnought was indeed heading straight for his position, cutting through his escort ships like they weren't even there. All remaining ships, he ordered. Protect the flagship, everything you have. 50 hegemony ships moved to intercept the UES Retribution. Their weapons fired continuously, creating a storm of energy that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. The human dreadnought flew through the attack without slowing down. Its shields absorbed punishment that should have vaporized any ship ever built. When it returned fire, the 50 interceptors simply vanished. Admiral Hawthorne stood on her bridge watching Admiral Thexara's flagship grow larger on the screen. She thought about little Tommy Walsh, who had asked her about shooting stars and would never ask another question. She thought about Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had died trying to warn Earth. She thought about all the families who had just wanted to live in peace. Disable their engines and weapons, she ordered. I want to have a conversation with Admiral Thexara. Precise quantum beams lanced out from the UES Retribution. Admiral Thexara's flagship shuddered as its propulsion systems were surgically destroyed. Secondary explosions disabled the weapon systems. In less than a minute, the mighty hegemony warship was reduced to a helpless hulk. Admiral Thexara, Admiral Hawthorne broadcast. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ship is disabled. Prepare to be boarded. Around them, the space near the nexus point was filled with the wreckage of the once mighty hegemony fleet. Of the 2.3 million ships that had entered the battle, fewer than 50,000 remained. Most of those were fleeing toward the edge of the system, carrying news of humanity's terrible victory to the rest of the galaxy. The largest space battle in galactic history was over, and the humans had won it so completely that it would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned to fear the species from Sol. The boarding tubes connected with a soft thud that echoed through Admiral Thexara's disabled flagship. The alien commander stood in his ruined bridge, surrounded by sparking consoles and the bodies of his crew. He had ordered his remaining officers to lay down their weapons. There was no point in fighting anymore. The airlock opened and human soldiers entered. They moved with the same cold precision their ships had shown in battle. Their armor was black as space and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. But it was their eyes that made Admiral Thexara step backward. They looked at him like he was already dead. Admiral Sarah Hawthorne entered last. She was smaller than most of her soldiers, but when she looked at Admiral Thexara, he felt like he was staring into the heart of a supernova. Admiral Thexara, she said quietly, we meet at last. You have won, the alien said, trying to maintain his dignity. What do you want? I want to show you something. Admiral Hawthorne activated a holographic projector. The bridge filled with images from Haven's Rest. The peaceful morning, the children playing, the families working in their fields. Then came the attack, the burning buildings, the systematic murder of civilians. Do you remember this? Admiral Hawthorne asked. Admiral Thexara watched the footage without expression. It was a legitimate military operation against an unauthorized colony. These were children. They were illegal settlers. Admiral Hawthorne nodded slowly. I see. So when you saw 7-year-old Tommy Walsh running through the cornfields, you thought illegal settler. When you watched Mrs. Chen arranging vegetables in the market, you thought unauthorized colonist. When your soldiers hunted down families hiding in their homes, you thought legitimate military operation. The Hegemony Council ordered you to murder 50,000 innocent people. And you did it. Worse, you broadcast it across the galaxy like entertainment. Admiral Hawthorne walked to the large view screen that dominated the bridge. Outside, space was filled with the wreckage of the Hegemony fleet. Thousands of ships had been reduced to glowing debris. The survivors were fleeing in all directions, carrying word of humanity's victory to every corner of the galaxy. Do you know what this is? She asked, gesturing to the destruction. It's your victory. No, this is a memorial service. Every ship we destroyed represents 8 people you killed on Haven's Rest. Every explosion is a prayer for the innocent dead. Every piece of wreckage is a promise that this will never happen again. Admiral Hawthorne turned back to face him. You thought humans were weak because we seemed peaceful. You thought we were primitive because our ships looked simple. You were wrong about everything. She activated another hologram, this one showing the human dreadnought that had brought him here. Each of our ships carries enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. We have quantum fusion reactors that generate more energy than some stars. Our weapons can manipulate time and probability. Our shields can absorb the explosion of antimatter warheads. Admiral Thexara stared at the technical specifications in disbelief. This technology, it should be impossible. We've had it for 50 years. We kept it secret because we hoped we'd never need to use it. We wanted to explore the galaxy in peace, to trade with other species, to learn and grow together. You made that impossible when you decided to murder our children. Admiral Hawthorne walked over to a section of the bridge wall where her soldiers had installed a memorial display. 50,000 names scrolled slowly across the screen. Every person who had died on Haven's Rest. Elena Rodriguez, she read aloud. She was a scientist who studied plants. She loved helping children learn about nature. She died trying to warn Earth about your attack. Tommy Walsh, 7 years old. He wanted to be a starship pilot when he grew up. Your soldiers shot him while he was hiding in a storage shed. Sarah Martinez. She was a teacher. 23 children were in her care when your soldiers found them in the school basement. She tried to shield them with her own body. Admiral Thexara said nothing. What could he say? He had ordered these deaths. He had watched them happen. He had been proud of them. You're going to kill me, he said finally. No, Admiral Hawthorne replied. You're going to live. You're going to go back to the Hegemony Council and tell them what you saw here. You're going to explain that humans are not the primitive species you thought we were. You're going to make them understand that if they ever attack another human colony, we'll come back with 2 million dreadnoughts instead of 400,000. She gestured to her soldiers, who began preparing to leave. Your ship's life support is intact. Emergency power will last for weeks. Someone will come for you eventually. Wait, Admiral Thexara called out as they reached the airlock. Why spare me? Admiral Hawthorne paused. Because someone needs to tell the galaxy what happened here. Someone needs to explain that we didn't want this war. We just wanted to live in peace. But when you force humans to fight, this is what happens. We are many. We are strong. And we never forget our dead. Hours later, Admiral Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as her fleet prepared to depart the Nexus Point. The battle was over, but the message was just beginning to spread. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different hegemony worlds. They're asking for terms. Tell them that Earth doesn't want their surrender. We want them to leave us alone. Any human colony that's attacked will result in their homeworld being visited by our fleet. Make sure they understand that. And the survivors from the battle? Admiral Hawthorne looked at the tactical display. Nearly 50,000 hegemony ships had escaped the battle. They were scattered across dozens of star systems, carrying news of humanity's overwhelming victory. Let them go. Let them tell everyone what they saw here. As the human fleet prepared to leave, Admiral Hawthorne received a message from President Chen Wei on Earth. Sarah, the president said, the galaxy is in chaos. Every major government is demanding to know how we built such a fleet so quickly. They want to negotiate to establish new treaties to apologize for what happened. What do you want me to tell them? Tell them the truth. Tell them that humans have been holding back for decades. Tell them we never wanted to conquer anyone. We just wanted to be left alone. But tell them that if they force us to fight again, the response will be even worse. Admiral Hawthorne nodded. And the fleet? Bring our people home. But keep the ships ready. Something tells me the galaxy won't learn this lesson as quickly as we hope. 3 months later, Admiral Hawthorne stood in a different place entirely. She was on Haven's Rest, where human engineers had been working around the clock to build something that had never existed before. The Memorial of the Innocent rose from the exact spot where the colony's town center had been. It was a massive crystalline structure that reached toward the sky like a prayer made solid. Inside, holographic displays showed the faces and names of every person who had died here. Tommy Walsh, age 7. Admiral Hawthorne read as she walked through the memorial halls. Elena Rodriguez, age 41. Sarah Martinez, age 34. President Chen Wei joined her, along with families from Earth who had come to pay their respects. Many were relatives of the dead. Others were simply humans who wanted to remember. The galaxy has changed, the president said quietly. Every species now knows what humans are capable of. The Hegemony Council has formally apologized and agreed to recognize all human colonies. 36 species have requested defensive alliances with Earth. And Admiral Thexara, court-martialed by his own people. They're hoping it will convince us not to hold the entire hegemony responsible for his actions. Admiral Hawthorne paused at a display showing the last moments of Haven's Rest. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's final message played on an endless loop, her voice calm and brave even as death approached. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we died as humans and we died free. She got her message through, Admiral Hawthorne said. Earth heard her. Earth answered. As the sun set over Haven's Rest, Admiral Hawthorne walked outside the memorial. In the distance, she could see the lights of New Haven, a city being built by colonists who had volunteered to resettle this world. Children were playing in parks built where alien soldiers had once marched. Families were planting gardens where fires had once burned. Above them all, barely visible in the evening sky, the shapes of human dreadnoughts kept watch. 400,000 ships still patrolled the borders of human space, ready to remind the galaxy of the price of attacking innocent people. The message was simple and clear. Humans remembered their dead. Humans protected their own, and humans had 400,000 dreadnoughts to make sure that message was never forgotten. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about humanity. They had discovered that the peaceful farmers and teachers and children were protected by guardians who could burn worlds if they had to. Haven's Rest lived again. The dead were remembered, and the stars themselves bore witness to humanity's promise, never again. Captain Lee Dahyun stared at the radar screen in disbelief. 36 massive ships had just dropped out of hyperspace near the mining colony of New Busan. The vessels were unlike anything he had ever seen before. They were huge, dark, and covered in what looked like weapons. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Park Minji. She was young but smart, and Dahyun trusted her judgment completely. "Put it through," Dahyun ordered. He commanded the patrol vessel Incheon's Pride, one of 12 ships protecting the outer colonies. His small fleet was no match for whatever had just arrived. The main screen flickered to life. A tall, blue-skinned alien appeared. It had 4 arms and eyes that glowed like fire. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound cold and mechanical. "Primitive beings of this system, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Valorian Third Fleet. You will surrender immediately. Your species will serve the Valorian Empire. Resistance is futile." Dahyun looked around his bridge. His crew of 23 men and women stared back at him. These were good people, miners, engineers, farmers, who had left Earth to build a better life among the stars. They had families waiting for them back on New Busan. "Admiral Kethvar," Dahyun said calmly. "This is Captain Lee Dahyun of the Terran Colonial Defense. We don't want any trouble, but we won't surrender our people. Leave now and no one gets hurt." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your 12 tiny ships against my fleet? You cannot be serious." Dr. Park Minji was working frantically at her station. She had been studying the alien ships since they arrived. "Captain," she whispered, "their shields are strong, but they're using old energy patterns. Our mining lasers might actually hurt them." Dahyun nodded slightly. The mining colony used powerful lasers to cut through asteroid rock. The colonists had mounted some of these lasers on their ships for protection against space pirates. No one had ever thought they would face an alien invasion. "Admiral Kethvar," Dahyun said, "you have 10 minutes to leave our system." 10 minutes? The alien's eyes glowed brighter. "I will give you 10 seconds to surrender, or I will destroy every ship and every colony in this system." Dahyun cut the transmission. He opened a channel to all 12 ships in his patrol fleet. "All ships, this is Incheon's Pride. We're going to fight. Protect the colony at all costs. Use everything you have." Commander Kim Woo-jin, who led the strategic operations for the colonial defense, came on the radio from the surface. "Captain, we're evacuating the civilians to the underground shelters, but we have 5,000 people here. They need time." You'll get it, Daehyun promised. The Valorian fleet moved forward. Their ships were massive compared to the human vessels. Each alien cruiser was 3 times the size of Daehyun's ship. They came in a perfect formation, like they had done this 1,000 times before. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Daehyun ordered. It was a desperate plan. The human ships would split into 3 groups and attack from different directions. They would use their smaller size and speed to confuse the enemy. The first group of human ships charged straight at the center of the alien fleet. The Valorians fired their weapons. Bright blue energy beams cut through space. 2 human ships exploded immediately. But the attack was just a distraction. The second group of ships came from the left side. They had modified their mining lasers to maximum power. The beams cut into the alien shields like hot knives through butter. 3 Valorian ships took damage before they could turn to face the new threat. The third group came from behind. These ships carried the heaviest mining equipment. Instead of firing weapons, they rammed directly into the alien vessels. The first ship, commanded by Captain Song Minho, crashed into a Valorian cruiser's engine section. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. "What are they doing?" Admiral Kethvar screamed on his bridge. "These tactics make no sense. Why are they destroying their own ships?" But the human plan was working. The Valorians were used to fighting enemies who valued their ships and lives above everything else. They had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything to protect their families. Captain Lee Daehyun watched as more of his ships were destroyed, but they were taking Valorian ships with them. The mining lasers were cutting through alien armor. The ramming attacks were causing massive damage. "Sir," Lieutenant Park Minji called out, "the colony is almost evacuated. Commander Kim says they need 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Daehyun looked at his remaining ships. Only 6 were left, including his own. The Valorians still had 28 ships. But something had changed. The alien fleet was not advancing anymore. They were staying back, afraid of more ramming attacks. "All ships, pattern Gamma," Daehyun ordered. This was even more desperate. The remaining ships would use themselves as shields while the colony finished evacuating. The human ships spread out in a line between the aliens and the planet. They fired everything they had. Mining lasers, construction tools turned into weapons, even their emergency flares. It was not much, but it was enough to keep the Valorians cautious. Admiral Kethvar watched from his command ship. He had conquered 17 different species in his career, but he had never seen anything like this. These humans fought like they were insane. They destroyed their own ships without hesitation. They turned mining equipment into weapons. They refused to surrender even when facing impossible odds. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 8 ships. These humans are using weapons we do not understand. Their tactics are completely unpredictable." Kethvar stared at the human ships. They were small and weak, but they fought with a fury that frightened him. His own crew was getting nervous. Valorian warriors were brave, but they were not used to enemies who seemed to enjoy dying in battle. "Sir, the humans have stopped firing," the tactical officer said. On the planet below, Commander Kim Woo-jin's voice came over the radio. "Captain Daehyun, all civilians are safe. Underground shelters are sealed. Colony is secure." Daehyun smiled. His mission was complete. The people were safe. But he still had one more surprise for the aliens. "Admiral Kethvar," he broadcast on an open channel. "This is Captain Lee Daehyun. You wanted to see what humans can do when we're threatened. This was just the beginning. Leave now, or find out what we're really capable of." To make his point, Daehyun ordered his remaining ships to detonate their fusion reactors simultaneously. 6 small suns bloomed in space, taking out 5 more Valorian ships that were too close. Admiral Kethvar stared at the expanding fireballs where the human ships had been. These creatures had destroyed themselves just to prove a point. They had killed themselves to send a message. "Tactical retreat," he ordered quietly. "All ships withdraw to safe distance." His crew looked at him in shock. The Valorian Third Fleet was retreating from 12 primitive ships, but Kethvar knew something his crew did not understand yet. These humans were not primitive. They were something far more dangerous. From the underground shelters on New Busan, Commander Kim Woo-jin watched the alien fleet pull back. Dr. Park Minji had made it to the surface before the battle ended. She was analyzing the data they had collected on the Valorian ships. "Commander," she said, "I've been studying their technology. They're advanced, but they're also predictable. They fight like they're following a manual. Everything by the book." Kim Woojin nodded. "And we don't have a book. We make it up as we go." On his command ship, Admiral Kethvar was preparing his report to the Valorian High Command. How could he explain what had happened? How could he tell them that 12 small ships had forced his entire fleet to retreat? "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "From the humans?" Kethvar asked. "Yes, sir. It's from someone called Commander Kim Woojin." Kethvar hesitated, then nodded. "Put it through." Kim Woojin appeared on the screen. He was a young human male with serious eyes. "Admiral Kethvar, I have a message for your empire. What you fought today was one small patrol fleet protecting one small colony. We have over 200 colonies spread across 50 star systems. Each one is defended. Each one is ready to fight. Tell your empire that humanity does not surrender. Tell them we protect our own. And tell them that if they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar sat in his command chair, thinking about what he had seen. The humans had fought with weapons that should not have worked. They had used tactics that made no strategic sense. They had sacrificed themselves without hesitation to protect their civilians. But the most frightening thing was what the human commander had said. This was just one small colony. How many more were out there? How many more humans were ready to fight like this? Kethvar began composing his report to the High Command. He would recommend sending a full sector fleet to deal with the human threat. Maybe 2 sector fleets. These creatures were more dangerous than they appeared. In the underground shelters of New Busan, the civilians were emerging to survey the damage. The space battle had been visible from the planet's surface. They had watched their defenders sacrifice themselves to keep the colony safe. Dr. Park Minji was collecting data from the wreckage in orbit. The pieces of Valorian ships would tell them much about their enemy's technology. But she had already learned the most important thing: the aliens. War Marshal Zeftal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Around him, 2,400 Valorian warships prepared for the largest military operation in recent galactic history. The 5th Conquest Armada represented 15% of the Empire's total military might. It was enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. "Marshal," his aide reported, "all fleet groups are ready. We have confirmed positions on 17 human colonies across 12 star systems." Zeftal nodded. He was a veteran of 17 successful planetary conquests. The humans would learn what it meant to defy the Valorian Empire. Admiral Kethvar's humiliating defeat would be avenged. "Begin the assault," he commanded. "Start with their 3 largest colonies, New Seoul, Neo-Tokyo, and Prometheus Station. Show no mercy." Across human space, Admiral Choi Seonho was coordinating the defense from Terra Command. The graying military veteran had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, humanity's first interstellar war. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're detecting massive Valorian fleet movements, at least 2,000 ships, possibly more. They're targeting our major population centers." Choi Seonho studied the tactical display. Red dots showed Valorian ships moving toward human colonies. The enemy had overwhelming numerical superiority. But numbers were not everything. "Send word to all colonies," he ordered. "Execute Defense Protocol 7. All civilians to prepared shelters. All militia units to battle stations. And activate the Ghost Corps." Colonel Yoon Jisoo received the activation signal while her unit was training in the asteroid fields near Prometheus Station. The Ghost Corps was humanity's most elite special forces unit. They specialized in unconventional warfare, the kind of fighting that regular armies could not handle. "All units, this is Phoenix Leader," she broadcast to her scattered teams. "The party has started, you know what to do." Yoon Jisoo's teams were different from normal soldiers. They had spent years learning to fight in space without large ships. They used small, fast vessels that could hide among asteroids and space debris. They struck without warning and disappeared before the enemy could respond. The first target was a Valorian supply convoy heading toward New Sol. 60 transport ships protected by 20 escort vessels. It should have been safe passage through empty space. The attack came from nowhere. Small human ships appeared from behind asteroids and launched everything they had. But instead of trying to destroy the convoy, they targeted the escort ships, communication arrays and sensor equipment. What's happening? The Valorian convoy commander screamed as his screens went dark. Where are they? The Ghost Corps ships had already vanished back into the asteroid field, but they had left presents behind. Dozens of small mines attached to the transport ships' hulls. The mines would not explode immediately. They would wait, sending location data to other human forces. At Prometheus Station, engineer Bae Hyun-soo was making final adjustments to humanity's newest defensive technology, adaptive shield systems that could learn and counter enemy weapons in real time. "Sir," his assistant called out, "the Valorian fleet is 3 hours out, 200 ships heading straight for us." Bae Hyun-soo smiled grimly. "Good. Time to see if our shields are as smart as we think they are." The Valorian assault on Prometheus Station began exactly as War Marshal Zeftal had planned. 200 heavy cruisers approached the human industrial complex in perfect formation. The station's defenses looked pathetic in comparison. A few orbital platforms and some civilian ships converted for military use. "Begin bombardment," the Valorian fleet commander ordered. "Destroy all defensive installations." The first wave of Valorian energy weapons struck the station's shields. The barriers flared bright blue and held. The second wave hit harder. The shields flickered but remained active. "Sir," the Valorian tactical officer reported, "their shields are adapting to our weapon frequencies. Each shot is less effective than the last." Bae Hyun-soo watched from the station's command center as his adaptive shields learned from each attack. The Valorian weapons used predictable energy patterns. The shields analyzed each shot and adjusted their harmonics to better resist the next one. "Rotate shield frequencies every 30 seconds, he ordered. "Let them think they're making progress, then surprise them." The battle for Prometheus Station lasted 18 hours. The Valorians threw everything they had at the human defenses, but the adaptive shields continued to evolve, becoming more resistant with each attack. Finally, the Valorian fleet commander made a desperate decision. "All ships ramming speed. Will destroy the station with kinetic impact." But as the alien ships accelerated toward the station, Colonel Yoon Jisu's Ghost Corps struck again. They had been hiding in the wreckage of destroyed civilian ships, waiting for this moment. Small explosives attached to the Valorian ship's engines detonated simultaneously. 20 Valorian ships lost power and crashed into each other. The coordinated ramming attack became a chaotic collision that destroyed 60 more vessels. The surviving ships retreated in confusion. At New Sol Colony, the battle was even more brutal. The Valorians had brought their most powerful siege weapons, expecting to crush human resistance quickly. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. Every human civilian was a potential soldier. Children as young as 12 operated anti-aircraft guns from concealed positions. Elderly citizens piloted makeshift bombers loaded with mining explosives. The entire population had turned their colony into a fortress. "Sir," a Valorian ground commander reported to his ship, "the humans won't stop fighting. We've taken the main city, but they keep attacking from underground tunnels. Even their children are armed." War Marshal Zeftal could not believe what he was hearing. Civilian populations were supposed to surrender when faced with superior force. They were supposed to beg for mercy. They were not supposed to fight like professional soldiers. "Use the nerve gas," he ordered. "Clear the tunnels." But when the Valorian troops entered the underground passages, they found them empty. The humans had abandoned their positions and moved to new ones. The tunnel system was far more extensive than the aliens had realized. General Na Yoonji commanded the defense of New Sol from a hidden command bunker 3 kilometers underground. She had spent 5 years preparing the colony for siege warfare. Every building was connected to the tunnel system. Every street had hidden weapons caches. Every civilian knew their battle station. "Phase 2, she ordered. "Begin urban assault. Above ground, the Valorian occupation force suddenly found themselves under attack from all directions. Human fighters emerged from sewers, building basements and concealed bunkers. They struck fast and hard, then disappeared back underground. The roar. Valorians were experts at conventional warfare. They knew how to fight other armies in open space or on flat battlefields. But they had no experience with guerrilla tactics in urban environments. "Marshal," the ground commander reported. "We control the surface, but the humans control everything underneath. They appear, attack, and vanish. We can't predict where they'll strike next." Dr. O. Taman was coordinating the human defense from the research facility on Kepler 442b. He had developed the quantum communication network that allowed human forces to coordinate across vast distances instantly. "All units," he broadcast to human forces across 12 star systems, "begin Operation Hornet's Nest. Time to show them what we're really capable of." Across human space, the real counterattack began. The Ghost Corps had spent weeks placing tracking devices on Valorian supply ships. Now they knew the location of every enemy vessel in human territory. Small human strike teams hit Valorian ships throughout the night. They did not try to destroy the vessels. Instead, they sabotaged life support systems, navigation computers, and communication arrays. The alien ships became floating tombs, cutting off from their fleet and slowly dying in space. Colonel Yoon Ji-soo led the most daring raid personally. Her team infiltrated War Marshal Zeph Tal's flagship while it orbited New Seoul. They did not try to capture or kill the enemy commander. They had a different mission. They planted listening devices throughout the ship and hacked into the Valorian communication system. Now humanity could hear every enemy transmission, every order, every tactical discussion. "Marshal," Yoon Ji-soo's voice came over the ship's speakers. "This is Colonel Yoon Ji-soo of the Terran Ghost Corps. We've been listening to your conversations. We know your battle plans. We know your supply routes. We know your weaknesses. Sweet dreams." The transmission cut off, leaving the Valorian command staff staring at each other in shock. The humans had been inside their most secure vessel without being detected. War Marshal Zeph Tal realized that his invasion was failing. 8 months of fighting had cost him over 1,600 ships. The humans showed no sign of surrendering. If anything, they were becoming more aggressive as the war continued. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've intercepted human communications. They're calling this the training war. They say they're using our invasion to test their military systems." Training war? Zeph Tal could not understand what that meant. The humans were fighting for their lives. How could they treat it as training? At Terra Command, Admiral Choi Seonho was reviewing battle reports from across human space. The defensive campaign was proceeding exactly as planned. The Valorians were being worn. Grand Admiral Morthak the Destroyer stood on the command deck of his massive dreadnought, the Galaxy's End. Around him, nearly 10,000 Valorian warships assembled in the largest military formation in the Empire's history. 3 full annihilation fleets representing 60% of Valorian military power, prepared to crush humanity once and for all. Admiral, his strategic coordinator, reported, "All fleet groups are in position. We have planet crackers, atmospheric poisoners, and star killer missiles. The humans will face complete extermination." Morthak nodded grimly. He had earned his reputation by destroying entire civilizations that refused to surrender. The humans would learn what true fear meant. War Marshal Zeph Tal's failure would be avenged with overwhelming force. "No prisoners," he commanded. "No enslaved populations. Total sterilization of all human worlds. We will erase this species from the galaxy." On Terra Prime, President Kang Min-seok stood in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath the planet's capital city. The former military strategist knew this moment would come. The Valorians would eventually commit everything to destroying humanity. "Mr. President," General Na Yoon-ji reported, "Valorian fleets are massing in 7 different staging areas. Intelligence estimates between 9 and 10,000 ships. They're bringing world-killer weapons." Kang Min-seok studied the tactical display showing red dots throughout human space. The enemy had enough firepower to sterilize every human world simultaneously. But humanity had been preparing for exactly this scenario. "Activate Protocol Omega," he ordered quietly. "All hidden facilities, all reserve forces, all secret weapons. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." Across human space, the real war machine began to awaken. What the Valorians had seen so far was just the public face of human military power. The truth was far more impressive and terrifying. Dr. Otaman coordinated the activation from his hidden facility in the Centauri system. For 3 years, humanity had been building weapons and ships in locations the Valorians could never have imagined. Underwater factories on ocean worlds, underground shipyards and asteroid mining stations, hidden construction facilities in the empty space between star systems. "All stations report ready," he announced to President Kang Min-seok. "Project Deep Storage is fully operational. We have 1,500 hidden production facilities coming online simultaneously." The Valorian assault began with Grand Admiral Morthak's favorite tactic: overwhelming shock and terror. His planet cracker missiles targeted Terra Prime, Nu, Sol, and 12 other major human worlds simultaneously. The weapons were designed to split planets apart from the core outward, but when the missiles reached their targets, something impossible happened. They simply disappeared. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported in confusion, "the planet crackers have been intercepted. Some kind of energy barrier is destroying them before impact." General Na Yunji watched from Terra Prime's command center as Bai Hyunsu's newest defensive system proved itself: planetary shield generators that could vaporize incoming missiles with focused energy beams. The technology was based on lessons learned from the adaptive shields used at Prometheus Station. "Sir," her tactical officer reported, "all major worlds are secure. The planetary shields are holding against everything they're throwing at us." But the real surprise came when the human counterattack began. Ships emerged from hidden bases throughout human space, not the converted civilian vessels the Valorians had been fighting, but purpose-built warships designed specifically for military combat. Admiral Shin Ji-won commanded the first wave of humanity's true fleet. Her ships appeared from concealed positions, in asteroid fields, nebulae, and empty space between star systems. The Valorians suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they had never seen before. "All ships," she broadcast, "begin Operation Retribution. Show them what happens when you threaten human families." The new human ships moved unlike anything the Valorians had encountered. They were fast, heavily armed, and equipped with Bai Hyunsu's adaptive technology. Their shields learned from enemy attacks within seconds. Their weapons adjusted frequency and power automatically to penetrate Valorian defenses. Marshal Yang Dong-hyuk led the Deep Space Reconnaissance Force in a series of strikes that devastated Valorian supply lines. His ships had been watching enemy movements for months, learning their patterns and weaknesses. "Target their command vessels," he ordered. "Take out their fleet coordination first." Yang Dong-hyuk's forces used tactics the Valorians could not understand. They appeared from impossible angles, struck with precision at critical systems, and vanished before the enemy could respond. It was like fighting ghosts that could predict every move. Grand Admiral Morthak watched his carefully planned assault dissolve into chaos. Human ships were appearing everywhere, using weapons and tactics his strategists had never encountered. The enemy seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "the humans have been intercepting our communications for months. They know our battle plans, our supply routes, our ship movements. They've been preparing specifically for this attack." Director Lim Soo-young of the Strategic Deception Division smiled as she watched Valorian fleets struggle against carefully laid traps. Her teams had spent 2 years feeding false information to enemy intelligence while learning everything about Valorian military doctrine. "Phase 3, she announced to her scattered operatives. "Begin the Revelation Protocol. Time to show them how thoroughly they've been deceived." Across the battlefield, human forces revealed the true scope of their deception. The colonies the Valorians thought they had destroyed were empty shells. The real populations had been evacuated to hidden worlds months before the invasion began. The desperate defenses the humans had mounted were carefully designed training exercises. Every battle had been planned to test specific weapons and tactics against live enemies. The Valorians had unknowingly served as test subjects for humanity's military development. President Kang Min-suk addressed the Valorian High Command directly via intercepted communication channels. His image appeared on screens throughout the VI enemy fleet, calm and confident. "Honorable members of the Valorian Empire," he said, "you have been fighting the Terra Colonial Defense Force, our local militia. They represent approximately 30% of human military capability. You are about to meet the Terran Republic Defense Forces, our actual military." The transmission cut off, leaving Grand Admiral Morthak staring at a blank screen. 30%? The humans had been holding back 70% of their forces? Admiral Park Jin-woo's reserve armada emerged from hiding like a rising tide of death. 15,000 ships of advanced design equipped with weapons the Valorians had never seen. They moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. "All units," Park Jin-woo broadcast, "begin total war protocols. No Valorian ship leaves human space." The reserve armada's ships were marvels of human engineering. They used quantum-entangled communication systems that made jamming impossible. Their weapons could adjust power and frequency faster than enemy shields could adapt. Their armor was designed to actually become stronger when damaged. General Hong Yuna commanded the ground forces that landed on Valorian ships disabled by the fleet action. But instead of slaughtering the enemy crews, she did something unprecedented in galactic warfare. "Attention Valorian personnel," she broadcast to captured ships. "We are providing medical assistance to your wounded and repair crews for your damaged vessels. Surrender peacefully and you will be treated according to the Sati, Terran Conventions on Warfare." The Valorian soldiers who surrendered found themselves in a situation none of them could understand. The humans provided food, medical care, and comfortable quarters. They asked questions about Valorian culture and technology, but they did not torture or execute prisoners. "Why are you helping us?" a wounded Valorian officer asked General Hong Yuna. "We came to destroy your species." Hong Yuna smiled sadly. "Because that's what humans do. We fight when we have to, but we don't enjoy killing. We'd rather turn enemies into friends." The battle for human space raged for 18 months, but it was not the desperate struggle the Valorians had expected. Instead, it was a systematic demonstration of human military superiority. Dr. O. Tamen's quantum communication network allowed perfect coordination between human forces across hundreds of light years. Every ship, every soldier, every defensive installation operated as part of a single massive organism. The Valorians found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to read their minds. Human forces anticipated every attack, countered every strategy, and struck at weak points the aliens did not even know they had. Grand Admiral Morthak's mighty armada was reduced to fewer than 3,200 operational ships. His planet crackers had been neutralized. His elite assault troops had been captured and were being treated better than they treated their own wounded. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." Admiral Park Jin-woo's image appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. "Grand Admiral Morthak, this is Admiral Park Jin-woo of the Terran Republic Defense Forces. Your invasion has failed. Your ships are surrounded. Your crews are dying. Surrender now and we will—" Emperor Kalthavan of the Valorian Empire sat in his golden throne room, reading Grand Admiral Morthak's battle report for the third time. The words seemed impossible to believe. The Empire's greatest military force, 60% of their total fleet strength, had been defeated by a species that appeared to treat warfare as entertainment. "Counselor Vextar," he called to his chief military advisor, "explain to me how this is possible. How can creatures who have barely achieved interstellar travel defeat our greatest armada?" Counselor Vextar shifted nervously. The old warrior had served the Empire for 40 years, but he had never seen anything like the reports coming from human space. "Your Majesty, our intelligence division has been analyzing intercepted human communications. The truth is worse than we feared." The Emperor gestured for him to continue. "The forces that defeated Grand Admiral Morthak represent less than 30% of human military capability. What we fought was their colonial defense force and local militia. Their actual military has not yet engaged. In the depths of space, far from any star system, Admiral Shin Ji-won commanded the human reserve armada from her flagship, the Terra's Wrath. Around her, 15,000 ships waited in perfect formation. These vessels had been built in secret over the past 5 years, hidden in locations the Valorians could never have imagined. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're receiving new intelligence from the Deep Space Reconnaissance Division. The Valorians have discovered our deception network." Shin Ji-won smiled coldly. Marshal Yang Dong-hyuk's spy ships had been observing Valorian space for over a decade. Humanity knew the location of every major enemy world, military base, and resource facility. They had detailed maps of Valorian territory that were more accurate than what the Empire's own military possessed. "Good," she said. "Time to show them what we've really been doing all these years." Marshal Yang Dong-hyuk's reconnaissance forces had been humanity's eyes and ears throughout the galaxy. His stealth ships, invisible to Valorian sensors, had studied every aspect of the Empire's military, political, and economic structure. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported from the hidden base in the void between stars, "the Valorians have finally realized that Earth is not humanity's homeworld. They're beginning to understand the scope of our deception." Yang Dong-hyuk nodded. Director Lim Soo-young's disinformation campaign had been masterful. For 3 years, she had convinced the Valorians that Earth was humanity's primary world and main population center. In reality, Earth was just one of over 200 major human colonies, and not even among the top 10 in terms of industrial capacity. "Phase 4, he ordered. "Begin the revelation protocol. Let them see what humanity really looks like." Director Lim Soo-young sat in her command center on the hidden world of New Geneva, monitoring Valorian communications as her carefully planned deception unraveled. The enemy was finally beginning to understand how thoroughly they had been manipulated. "Sir," her communications specialist reported, "we're detecting panic transmissions throughout Valorian space. They've discovered our observation posts in their territory. They know we've been watching them for years." Lim Soo-young had spent 5 years building the most sophisticated intelligence network in galactic history. Human operatives and automated spy systems monitored every aspect of Valorian society. They knew the Empire's military secrets, political weaknesses, and economic vulnerabilities. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. Emperor Kalthvin received the report from his intelligence division with growing horror. Human spy ships had been operating in Valorian space for over a decade. They had observed military exercises, recorded classified communications, and mapped strategic installations. "Your Majesty," Intelligence Director Morkoth reported, "the humans have been preparing for this war since before first contact. They knew about our empire years before Admiral Kethvar encountered their patrol fleet." The Emperor stood up from his throne, pacing to the great window that showed the capital city of Valorius Prime. "Are you telling me that their first contact was staged? That they allowed Admiral Kethvar to find them?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Our analysts believe the humans wanted us to attack them. They used our invasion as a training exercise to test their military systems against a real enemy." On Terra Prime, President Kang Min-seok held an emergency session with the Terran High Council. The time for deception was over. Humanity was about to reveal its true nature to the galaxy. "Counselors," he addressed the assembled leaders of human space. "The Valorians now know they have been fighting less than 1/3 of our military forces. It's time to show them what humanity looks like when we're actually trying." Fleet Admiral Park Jin-woo received his new orders via quantum-encrypted transmission. The reserve armada would emerge from hiding and demonstrate why humanity had become the dominant species in their region of the galaxy. "All ships," he broadcast to his massive fleet. "Operation Final Lesson begins now. Show the galaxy what happens when you threaten human civilians." But as the reserve armada prepared to reveal itself, something even more shocking was happening throughout human space. Civilian news broadcasts were discussing the war with casual interest, as if it were a sporting event rather than a fight for survival. Valorian intelligence operatives intercepted human media transmissions with growing disbelief. News anchors, discussed battle tactics like game strategies. Civilian commentators critiqued military performance as if watching entertainment. Children played games based on the battles they had witnessed. Breaking news, a human reporter announced. The Valorian Empire has committed 60% of their total fleet strength to the invasion of human space. Military analysts expect this phase of the conflict to last approximately 6 more months, before Valorian forces are forced to retreat. The reporter spoke as if the outcome was already decided. There was no fear, no uncertainty, just confident analysis of how the war would proceed. Emperor Calthavan watched these transmissions in his private chamber, struggling to understand what he was seeing. How could a species under existential threat discuss their situation so calmly? Counselor Vextar, he called his military advisor, explained to me why the humans are not afraid. The old warrior's response chilled the Emperor to his core. Your Majesty, our psychologists believe the humans are not afraid because they never considered this a real threat. To them, our invasion is an interesting challenge, not a fight for survival. In the hidden research facilities of New Cambridge, Dr. O. Taman was coordinating humanity's true scientific achievements. The technology the Valorians had encountered was just the beginning. Human science had advanced far beyond what they had revealed. Sir, his research assistant reported, the quantum fold communication network is ready for galaxy-wide activation. We can now coordinate military operations across thousands of light years in real time. O. Taman nodded. Humanity's technological advantages went far beyond better weapons and shields. They had developed communication and coordination systems that allowed their entire species to function as a single organism when necessary. But the most disturbing revelation came from intercepted human educational broadcasts. Children in schools were learning about the war as part of their history lessons, even though it was still ongoing. Today we'll study the Valorian conflict, a human teacher explained to her class of 10-year-olds. This represents humanity's first major interstellar war and demonstrates several key principles of asymmetric warfare and psychological operations. The children listened attentively, taking notes on military tactics and strategic deception. To them, the war was already history, a teaching tool to help them understand how their species dealt with external threats. General Hong Yuna was processing Valorian prisoners of war when she made a discovery that changed everything. The captured, enemy soldiers were not the fanatical warriors she had expected. They were frightened, confused beings who had been told they were fighting primitive savages. Colonel, she reported to her superior, the Valorian military structure is based on rigid hierarchy and unquestioning obedience. Their soldiers have never faced an enemy that thinks independently. They literally don't know how to fight against opponents who adapt and improvise. This explained why human tactics had been so effective. The Valorians were excellent at following battle plans, but they could not adjust when those plans failed. Humans, on the other hand, had built their entire military doctrine around flexibility and adaptation. Ambassador No Seungmin received his instructions from President Kang Min-seok as Valorian resistance began to collapse throughout their empire. His mission was to negotiate not just an end to the war, but the foundation of a new galactic order. Ambassador, the president said, the Valorians are about to learn that humanity has been in contact with 47 other spacefaring species. All of them have been too afraid of the Valorian Empire to reveal themselves. With the Empire neutralized, it's time to build something better. As the truth spread throughout Valorian space, panic began to set in. Not just military panic, but existential terror at the realization of what they had awakened. Humanity was not just another spacefaring species. They were something entirely new in galactic history, a species that treated warfare as problem-solving, diplomacy as President Kang Min-seok stood before the assembled representatives of 63 different species in the Great Hall of Terra Nova Station. The massive space facility had been built in just 6 months, a testament to humanity's industrial capabilities. Today would mark the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. Fellow citizens of the galaxy, he began, his words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better future for all sentient life. Fleet Admiral Park Jin-woo watched from the military section as former enemies sat side by side with species that had hidden from the Valorian Empire for centuries. The Kalari, who had spent 50 years hiding in the Galactic Rim. The Genthi, collective, whose peaceful merchant fleets had been driven underground by Valorian aggression. The mysterious Vorthan, whose advanced technology had been kept secret for fear of Valorian theft. Admiral, his aide whispered, the integration of former Valorian military units is proceeding ahead of schedule. General Hong Yuna reports that 3,000 enemy officers have volunteered for joint training programs. Park Jin-woo nodded. General Hong Yuna's occupation forces had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of ruling through fear and oppression, they had improved conditions for Valorian civilians while retaining former enemy military personnel as partners rather than prisoners. Emperor Kalthvin, now bearing the ceremonial title of Cultural Advisor for Valorian Integration, sat in the front row of the assembly. 6 months ago he had commanded the largest empire in known space. Today he watched his former subjects working alongside their former enemies to build something better than either had imagined possible. Your Majesty, Ambassador No Sungmin said quietly, taking the seat beside him. The reconstruction of Valorius Prime is ahead of schedule. Human engineering teams have restored full infrastructure, and your people report higher satisfaction ratings than they had under the old system. Kalthvin still struggled to understand how this was possible. Humanity had defeated his empire completely, yet instead of enslaving or destroying his people, they had made their lives better. Valorian workers now had shorter hours, better pay, and access to medical care that surpassed anything the empire had provided. Ambassador, he said, why? Why help those who tried to destroy you? No Sungmin smiled. Because that's what humans do. We solve problems. Your people were suffering under an oppressive system that forced them to attack others. We fixed the system. In the research facilities of New Geneva, Dr. O. Taemin was coordinating the most ambitious project in galactic history. The Galactic communication network would connect every inhabited world in real time, allowing instant coordination and cooperation across thousands of light years. Sir, his assistant reported, the Vorthan have agreed to share their quantum-fold technology. Combined with our communication systems, we'll be able to link the entire galaxy within 2 years. O. Taemin marveled at how quickly everything was changing. 6 months ago, most galactic species had lived in isolation, afraid to reveal themselves. Now they were working together on projects that would benefit everyone. But the most remarkable changes were happening on individual worlds throughout former Valorian space. General Hong Yuna toured the rebuilt capital city of Valorius Prime, accompanied by her Valorian counterpart, General Kethmore. The former enemy commander had become one of humanity's most effective partners in the reconstruction effort. General Hong, Kethmore said, as they watched human and Valorian children playing together in a newly constructed park. My people are calling this the peaceful conquest. They joke that humans invaded us with kindness instead of weapons. Hong Yuna laughed. We prefer to think of it as aggressive friendship, much more effective than traditional warfare. The park they walked through had been built where the old imperial palace once stood. Instead of a monument to conquest, it was now a place where families from dozens of species could gather and play. Human engineering had created environmental zones suitable for different atmospheric requirements, allowing unprecedented interspecies interaction. General, Kethmore continued, I must ask you something that troubles many of my people. Why do you trust us? How do you know we won't betray you when we become strong enough? Hong Yuna stopped walking and looked at the former enemy officer seriously. General, humanity learned something important during our own history. The best way to prevent future conflicts is to make sure everyone benefits from peace. If your people are happy, prosperous, and free, why would they want to fight us? Marshal Yang Dongyuk's Deep Space Reconnaissance Force had been reassigned to exploration rather than military intelligence. His ships, which had once spied on enemy fleets, now searched for new species to invite into the growing galactic community. Sir, his navigation officer reported, we've detected artificial structures in the Kepler 891 system. appears to be a civilization that's achieved early spaceflight but hasn't left their home system yet. Yang Donghyuk smiled. First contact. Protocols had changed dramatically since the Valorian conflict. Instead of waiting for new species to find them, humanity actively sought out developing civilizations to offer assistance and protection. Prepare the standard first contact package, he ordered. Medical technology, communication systems, and a formal invitation to join the galactic community. And make sure they understand we're here to help, not conquer. But the most significant changes were happening in human space itself. The war had revealed humanity's true capabilities, but it had also shown the galaxy what human society was really like. Director Lim Soo-young of the Strategic Deception Division found herself reassigned to the Department of Cultural Exchange. Her skills at understanding and manipulating other species were now used to help facilitate peaceful cooperation rather than military advantage. "Ma'am," her assistant reported, "the Kalari delegation is requesting assistance with their educational system. They want to implement human-style critical thinking programs for their children." Lim Soo-young nodded. This was the kind of challenge she enjoyed. How do you teach an entire species to think differently? How do you help them develop the flexibility and adaptability that had made humanity so successful? The answer, she had learned, was patience and genuine respect for other cultures. Humans didn't try to make other species become human. They helped them become better versions of themselves. Engineer Bae Hyun-soo's adaptive technology had revolutionized more than just military defense. The same principles that allowed shields to learn from enemy attacks were now being used to create systems that adapted to the needs of different species. "Sir," his research team reported, "the atmospheric processors for New Genthy are working perfectly. The colony can now support 7 different species simultaneously, each with optimal environmental conditions." Bae Hyun-soo watched the progress reports with satisfaction. Building weapons had been necessary during the war, but building homes for refugees and creating environments where different species could live together was far more rewarding. Colonel Yoon Ji-soo's Ghost Corps had also been transformed. Instead of conducting sabotage and reconnaissance against enemies, they now served as rapid response teams for humanitarian crises throughout the galaxy. "Colonel," her communication specialist reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. Natural disaster on Kepler 1247. 7 different species need evacuation." Yoon Ji-soo's teams had become the galaxy's premier emergency response force. They could appear anywhere within hours, equipped to handle any crisis. The same skills that had made them terrifying to enemies now made them heroes to civilians in need. President Kang Min-seok concluded his address to the Galactic Assembly with words that would be remembered for centuries. "We stand at the beginning of a new age," he said. "An age where strength is measured not by the ability to destroy but by the capacity to build, where success is defined not by conquest but by cooperation, where the greatest warriors are those who fight to protect the innocent and help the weak become strong. Humanity offers you our hand in friendship, not as rulers, but as partners, not as conquerors but as builders. Together we will create a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential, where every world can prosper, and where every child can grow up without fear." The assembly erupted in applause from dozens of different species. But the most meaningful moment came when Emperor Kalthavan stood and added his voice to the ovation. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The Valorian Empire had become the Valorian Federation, a democratic society where former subjects now chose their own leaders. 47 species that had hidden in fear for decades now participated openly in galactic commerce and culture. The Treaty of Terra Nova established humanity as the protectors of galactic peace, but with strict limitations on their authority. They could intervene to prevent aggression or genocide, but they could not impose their will on peaceful societies. Ambassador No Seung-min had negotiated a framework that satisfied everyone. Humanity would provide military protection and technological assistance, but each species would govern itself according to its own values and traditions. The final scene of this new galactic order took place in a small park on Valorius Prime. Emperor Kalth